What is going on, everybody? Welcome to Locked On Badgers. I'm your host, Ryan Herrings. We're going to take a little look at Luke Fickell's staff as it is right now, what we know, and why they went heavy in an area that the previous staff went light on, and why I think it's a big deal. We're going to talk about that and a bunch more on today's Locked On Badgers. Let's go.
You are Locked On Badgers, your daily podcast on the Wisconsin Badgers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome to Locked On Badgers. I am your host, Ryan Herrings. As always, thank you for tuning in. Really, really grateful to have you all here. If you're watching on YouTube, if you're listening on the pod, however you found us, thank you. I appreciate it. Today's show is brought to you by our good friends over at Sling TV. This episode of Locked On Badgers is brought to you by Sling TV. Don't miss this week's matchup between your favorite teams right here on Sling TV, the TV you love for the price you love. Try it today. All right, let's get into it. I want to talk about Luke Fickell's staff, where we're at right now, what we know, and what some of the strengths are, and specifically an area where it looks like, whether it's purposely or whether it's just happened, that they've gone heavy in on, where the previous staff under Paul Chryst was traditionally kind of light, in my opinion. So let's get caught up here. So the staff is coming together. Gino Gudelli, I'm probably butchering his last name, but he's coming over. He was Cincinnati's offensive coordinator. We talked about him a little bit. He's coming over as a tight ends coach. He was also a quarterbacks coach. And he's joining Phil Longo, who we've talked about a lot, the North Carolina offensive coordinator, who was also a quarterbacks coach, right? So what was one of our big criticisms of the Paul Chryst staff? Like, what was one of our big issues? It was a lack of a dedicated quarterback developer, a lack of a guy who, for lack of a better term, and maybe people pointed to Paul Chryst as this dude, but he was no longer that dude. They just didn't have somebody on the staff who could really grind with the quarterback and develop the most pivotal, important position on the football field, right? And the staff under Luke Fickell, what have we seen? They've gone all in there. They've got two dudes, right? They've got two dudes who have a very recent and prodigious track record of producing quarterbacks, right? Phil Longo and Gino Gudelli. You're talking Desmond Ridder, NFL guy. Sam Howell, NFL guy. Drake May. Drake May be the Heisman favorite next year for North Carolina. These are the guys, just in the last couple of years, these two coaches have developed, recruited and developed. Think about that. You're bringing in two coaches who in between them have developed multiple quarterbacks at a very high level. And you're bringing them into a place that we just haven't been able to do that for a decade, right? You got to go back, maybe Cohn sort of, maybe Hornibrook sort of, but for the most part, you got to go back like a decade. You got to go back to Russell Wilson, who came as a bit of a finished product, and Scott Tolzien, who got a cup of coffee in the NFL. And in between those two spots, between point A, that era, and point B, and by the way, my camera's going blank. I don't know what it is. Let me try this. Between those two spots, you have just this wasteland, this quarterback graveyard at Wisconsin that we just haven't gotten much of anything. So bringing those two dudes in to help, in my opinion, that feels like a deliberate attempt to, we're going to raise the coaching acumen at the most important position in football. We maybe will be short somewhere else, right? Maybe it'll be tight ends where Gino's coming in to coach, but we are not going to be short at coaching and developing quarterbacks. We are going to have that cuppeth runneth over, right? And I'm really excited about that. I'm very interested to see, are both of those coaches going to take time working with quarterbacks? I want to ask and figure out, how is that relationship going to work with coaching the quarterback's room? Because they both have experience there. Maybe they're both going to, contribute into that area, which quite frankly, the more you can develop quarterbacks, the better, right? And the other part of this that I find really interesting is on the recruiting front, right? It is a lot easier now. You can sell the track record of multiple NFL quarterbacks to quarterback recruits. Think about that. What were we selling previously? It's a miracle that they got Graham Mertz, quite frankly. Like, what are you selling to current quarterbacks, future quarterbacks? Now you can sell Madison, and we all know how incredible Madison is. You can sell Big Ten, which is incredible. You can sell the history of Wisconsin football, which is incredible. The fan support and the environment and everything that we were already selling that really matters and that we're really good at. And we can also now sell, by the way, Desmond Ridder, Sam Howell, Drake May. Our coaches develop quarterbacks. I think this only makes us a more intriguing destination for quarterbacks, a spot for quarterbacks to come to, because we can sell that track record of developing them now. And it's such a departure from where we were in our previous staff, where what are you from a coaching and player development, from an NFL pipeline standpoint, what are you selling to a recruit when you're in their living room? Listen, there's a reason we heard about it. We talked about it on the show. Lincoln Kienholz. There's a reason that he didn't come to Madison. Braden Dorman. These guys. And listen, I'm a big fan of Cole LaCrue. I think he's a real Division I guy. I don't think they should have waited as long as they did on him. I'm glad he's in the stable. But they missed on a lot of quarterbacks to get to Cole LaCrue. And I think part of the reason was they couldn't sell the quarterback development like other schools could. I mean, you're telling me if we had these two coaches and Luke Fickell leading this program and they were in a living room with Lincoln Kienholz, he wouldn't look at us more than he did in last cycle? Yeah, I think he would. So I think that's a really big deal. I think it's gotten underreported that you're bringing in two quarterback developers and two quarterback minds that can sell the position, develop the position, coach the position into this coaching ecosystem at Wisconsin. I think it's a big deal. I think it's one of the things I'm most excited about as this staff has started to come together. All right, what else is there? So you've got those two. You're locked. Now you've locked up offensive coordinator, quarterbacks coach, tight ends coach. The receivers coach is on board. You have the defense coordinator, Mike Tressel, who also has experience coaching linebackers. You have the safeties coach with Colin. I forget his last name. Colin is blanking, but you have the safeties coach coming over. And you also have the offensive line coach. So that's kind of where we're at on that front. It's interesting to me. Again, the big takeaway here is they are loading up on quarterback coaching experience, and I'm all for that. That's the most important position on the field. That's the king on the chessboard, or queen. I guess the queen is the most powerful piece. The king is the most important. I don't know. That's an interesting dichotomy there. Either way, I got to believe we're going to coach, develop, and recruit quarterbacks better with this staff, which is going to lead to more wins. The other thing I found is interesting, and I think this is tangibly related to Luke Fickell and his coaching staff, is we've had two Badgers who entered the portal, right, who said, I think there's greener pastures elsewhere. And then saw these coaching moves, saw this coaching transition and said, you know what? Madison's pretty green grass. So Markus Allen came back. Michael Furtney came back. And I know former Badger great Jack Sitchie had some things to say about a player, and he was specifically referencing Markus Allen, going to the portal, kind of leaving his team, going, and he committed to the Gophers for a minute, which is a weird thing, right? And then coming back. I got to be honest, it doesn't bother me too much, right? Kids were in the midst of having, a coach fired, an interim coach coming in, not really knowing the future. And quite frankly, the offensive side has been kind of weird anyway. Like, it hasn't been very good. It's been the brunt of a lot of criticism. I really don't have a huge problem with somebody going in the portal. And then when a situation changes, which it did at Wisconsin drastically, right? Luke Fickell came on board. That's a big-time coach. And then he brings Phil Longo in. If you're Markus Allen, if you're a receiver, I don't really have a big issue with saying, oh, man, that actually – because remember, when he committed to Wisconsin, like, he obviously likes Madison. He likes the fit. He likes the school. He likes the area. He's good with all that. It was a football thing that probably got him to leave. He's like, this isn't the best fit for me. But now we're bringing in a coach that has made productive passing offenses. I get why he'd want to come back in, and I don't have a huge problem with it. Furtney, the same thing. He was going on a third offensive line coach. He didn't know what the future would be. Bob Bostad had left. I don't blame him. But upon talking to the new coaching staff, they were sold, especially Furtney, which I think is a sign of confidence, and it's something that should make us feel good about this new coaching staff coming in. This is what Michael Furtney said. After great talks with Coach Fickell, Coach Longo, and Coach Bicknell, so that's the head coach, the offensive coordinator, and Coach Bicknell is the new offensive line coach, I have removed my name from the transfer portal. Great things are happening here. I believe in the vision my coaches have for this team. I'm excited to get back on the field with my brothers. UW is my home. Focusing on the great things are happening here. I believe in the vision my coaches have for this team. He's already bought in. After just a quick conversation with Luke Fickell, the offensive line coach, he's bought in. That should make everybody feel pretty good about this transition and the way, Fickell is going to relate to this locker room and win this locker room over. So I'm excited about that. And I'm very excited about, like I said, the upgrading coaching acumen at the quarterback spot for the staff. I think those are really important and interesting things going forward. All right, coming up, we are going to talk a little bit about what's left to fill out on the staff. Is there any chance a Wisconsin coach remains? And what spot is going to get left out of the shuffle? Because there's a limited amount of coaches you can hire. Something's going to get left out here. We're going to talk about that, why it matters, coming up next. But first, today's show is brought to you by Omaha Steaks. Omaha Steaks are just the perfect way to go into this holiday season and be the gift-giving hero that we all want to be. I remember the first time I got Omaha steaks as a present. And listen, that blows away just about anything else you can get. Steaks are incredible. They're juicy. They're tasty. And if you give it, you're going to vault to the upper tier, the BCS Sugar Bowl level of gift giving. That's where you want to be. Trust me. And it's insane. Omaha Steaks has cut prices 50% site-wide to make you the gift-giving hero that you always wanted to be. The holidays are here. Achieve gifting greatness when you give the gift of a perfectly aged, tender, and delicious Omaha steak. A gift from the heart, and you get even bigger promo code if you use Locked On at checkout to get that extra $40 or 40% off your order, $40 off your order. Minimum order may be required. 5 generations of family-owned expertise means that every piece of meat you're going to get is going to be uncompromising quality, and it's something you can trust. Omaha Steaks is everything you need to give a gift that's simply perfect. Gifts like perfectly aged tender steaks, juicy burgers, decadent desserts, classic comfort meals. A gourmet gift from Omaha Steaks is a gift from the heart, a gift they'll remember with every unforgettable bite. Take advantage of 50% off site-wide, plus get $40 off your order when you use the code LOCKEDON at checkout. Whether you're shopping for friends, family, colleagues, or yourself, every order is backed by their unconditional money-back guarantee. Minimum order is required. All right. Once again, I appreciate everybody tuning in. Thank you so much for just continuing to help this show build, help us grow. Wherever you're finding us, thank you. I really do appreciate it. All right, let's talk about what needs to happen still. So if you don't know, you can have a head coach and 10 assistant spots. Okay, that's all you can have. Now you can have grad assistants, you can have offensive analysts. Alabama and some of the bigger schools fill up in those spots. They have multiple quality control analysts, defensive analysts, quality control this, a couple of grad assistants, but you can have 10 coaches and a head coach that are officially on field coaching. Okay, so this current staff, we've got 6 already. We've got Luke Fickell, right? We've got the offensive coordinator. We've got the receivers coach, Mike Brown. We've got Gino coming over to coach tight ends. Bicknell is the offensive line guy. On defense, you got Mike Tressel coaching defensive coordinator, probably in the linebackers. You have the safeties coach coming in as well. So you've got 6. What's left? You still need a running backs coach. Okay. And I think they're certainly holding out for a big time hire there. I think you have, you're still waiting on a defensive line coach. You definitely need that spot filled. And then it gets a little interesting, right? So that would bring you up to 8. You have 2 spots left. Do you want another linebackers coach? Wisconsin traditionally has had an inside and an outside linebackers coach. Mike Tressel has coached linebackers, but he's also going to be the defensive coordinator. How much do you want on his plate? Do you want another defensive backs coach, right? You're bringing a safeties coach over, but he's younger. It would make sense probably to have a cornerbacks coach and a safeties coach. But if you do that, if you go that route, hire another linebackers coach, Bobby April, and the cornerbacks coach, you're not getting a special teams coordinator at that point, right? And this is all the big mix that head coaches always have to do. It's always a mix and match. You're never going to have a person to cover every single position. So you have to take somewhere to give somewhere, right? So if you do hire another linebackers coach and another cornerbacks coach, you're not going to have that special teams coordinator, which I know that's something that Badger fans lamented last year, right? That's something that was a big deal. Nebraska fans will tell you about how many years they've gone wanting to get that special teams coordinator, because special teams has let them down. Now, a lot of staffs don't have a special teams coordinator, right? They have different coaches working with different units. So there's a lot of ways you can do this. It's going to be really interesting. And there's not really a perfect way. Like I said, there's not a blueprint that works every time. I think the key is, you find people who work with the head coach, who work within that philosophy, and you make it work. But you're going to be light somewhere. But that's what we've talked about. And you certainly can't go without a running backs coach or a defensive line coach. So it's going to come down to those last kind of 3 spots. Do you want a second linebackers coach? Do you want a cornerbacks coach? Or do you want a special teams coordinator? Which of those 3 are the most important? I'd be interested to hear what you guys think on that. I would probably lean towards, here's where it's tough for me, because I want Bobby April on this staff, and I have no idea what Luke Fickell thinks. He's just such a dynamite recruiter. And he's done such a good job developing talent in Madison. He feels like a guy that would be a good fit on just about any staff. He's a guy who, interviewed for the Michigan defensive coordinator position last year. He's a guy who everybody assumed would take over Jim Leonard's defensive coordinator spot in Madison. Like, he's that type of guy. And we talked to recruits, right? I talked to Tackett Curtis's coach. I talked to a walk-on that Wisconsin had basically got a commitment from Washington, who had been committed to Bobby April. He is an amazing recruiter. The only reason, I shouldn't say the only, but the biggest reason Wisconsin was right there, and they were, by the way, for Tackett Curtis, one of the biggest prospects in the country that went to USC, was because of Bobby April, because of the bond he built with that family and that player and that school. Getting him on staff, I think, would be a big deal. It'd be a huge win. But if you do that, you're either sacrificing a special teams coach or a cornerbacks coach, right? So I don't know. Again, there's not really a right or wrong way. It's going to be really interesting to see how that works and how that goes forward. I also want to talk about, Mickey Turner, right? So there's a tight ends coach coming over, Gino. We've talked about that. Mickey Turner has been the recruiting guy in the department. It looks like he's still working in that capacity at some level. Do we think he stays in the recruiting department as Luke Fickell comes over? That's going to be really interesting for me to see. I don't know if he would. I don't know what that role would be. I think it makes sense to have some continuity there. Somebody who would know where all the local schools are, the prospects, have some familiarity with the state and the program inside that recruiting department. So that's something that's interesting to me to see if he stays as well. I kind of hope he does, because I think he's a good recruiter. And I think he has, for the most part in his career as a tight ends coach, done a good job recruiting. So it may be a situation where he doesn't want to take kind of that decrease in responsibility. That would obviously make sense. I hope he would stay on staff, though. And then I want to talk about a preferred walk-on commitment, Davion Thomas, a receiver out of Catherine's High School in Racine, Wisconsin, 6 foot, runs about a 4.5, two-way player, productive player. It's the second preferred walk-on that's committed since Luke Fickell got here. We talked about Peyton Lange, the gigantic offensive tackle out of Minnesota. I think this is a really good sign for people that, there's some continuity still in the recruiting department, but also that this coaching staff is going to continue working ways to find talent, right? There's no reason why the preferred walk-on program that has really worked at Wisconsin, has brought quite a bit of talent into Wisconsin, should go away. And I know that was a concern people had, right? People were worried that Luke Fickell, you're bringing in a different coach, a lot of the traditional things that have worked for Wisconsin, would go away, would disappear. And it's very early, or it's far too early to draw definitive conclusions. But it looks like so far, 2 preferred walk-ons have committed since Luke Fickell took this mantle. And that's why I wanted to highlight Davion Thomas as an in-state kid, walk-on, just committed. It looks like that pipeline of preferred walk-ons is going to continue, at least to some degree. It looks like that's that idea of finding talent, unearthing hidden gems, and using it to kind of bolster recruiting classes at Wisconsin isn't going to go away under Luke Fickell. So I'm excited about that, because I got to be honest, I like that aspect of this program. I don't think you have to abandon everything that we used to be to transition into something new. I think the best case is you meld what worked, and Luke Fickell can really enhance what didn't. And so I'm a little excited to see walk-ons continue committing. Had 2 of them so far. And I'm going to dive more into Davion Thomas's film, maybe even see if we can get him on the show. I think that'd be a really fun conversation. So, but congrats on the commitment if he's watching this, and something for us to keep track of, as a couple walk-ons have committed. So if you're worried about the preferred walk-on program maybe going away, or, maybe something that this new coach staff isn't going to pursue, it looks like, at least so far, those fears are probably unfounded. Coming up next, I got 5 big things for basketball, 5 big thoughts, ranging from good, bad, interesting, where I'm at on certain players. I'm going to roll through that next. But first, today's show is brought to you by our good friends over at Built Bar. Stop. Let's pause for 1 second. Put down everything you're doing. We need to focus on some of the new flavors at Built Bar. It's cookie dough topper, coconut brownie bar, coconut brownie topper. I've told y'all before, like, Built Bar is my nutritional assassin. I mean, I go to it all the time. It is healthy, protein-packed, low on sugar, and my kids dive into it. So I have like some hidden stuff, and I also leave some stuff out, so they can eat healthy, and they think they're sneaking candy bars, right? And on the inside, I know I'm just getting a dad win here, because they're getting healthy protein. And I also have my little cache out here in the barn, in the podcast HQ, as I call it. And whenever I'm a little hungry, post-lunch snack, pre-workout snack, I can bang out a Cliff or a Built Bar. And it's something that, it doesn't taste like I'm eating the traditional protein bar, which is a struggle. Nobody likes that cardboard taste. Built Bar isn't like that. Great taste, tons of protein. And it's just the number one way that I've been able to kind of augment my nutrition as I try to get a little bit healthier. And we have a great offer for you. Go to Built. You got to try this. Get 15% off your order right now using the code LOCKEDON15 at Built.com. That's 15% off your order right now using the code LOCKEDON15 at Built.com. All right. Once again, I want to thank everybody for tuning in to Locked On Badgers. Really do appreciate y'all as we just continue to build this community. It means so much to me. So thank you for that. let's get into 5 big basketball thoughts that I have. Here's the first one. This team's depth isn't much better than it was last year. And, so we talked a lot last year. We talked, about the foibles from behind the three-point line, how this team really struggled shooting the ball, but also about how there just wasn't a whole lot that we could count on coming off the bench, right? And if a player got hurt, which unfortunately it did because it's sports, it's basketball. Chucky Hepburn went down with the ankle injury. There just wasn't a real answer to come off the bench and give the team a little life ring for a few minutes or for 20 minutes if they had to. And we came into this year early in the year, and Rajiv and I were talking about it, and we were talking about is the depth better, is it not? And I kind of made the point, and listen, the book isn't closed on this yet. It is absolutely not closed, but I kind of made the point, I don't know if the depth is really better. We just maybe have more pieces. And I think that's where we're at right now. If the only real difference is you have Connor coming off the bench. You have Asijan coming off the bench who provides that instant firepower, that instant boost that last year's team didn't have. But besides that, you still have your 5 starters. You have Connor, right? There's still not a lot else that you can really consistently rely on coming off the bench to come in. Let's say if Stephen Crowl gets in foul trouble, to give you 8 points, to shoot a decent percentage, right? You have Carter Gilmore coming off the bench who, listen, Gilmore works his tail off, had a couple monster offensive rebounds against Iowa, pretty solid defensively, but he's also a guy shooting 2 for 8 from the free throw line. Teams are basically daring him to shoot threes. Like you're not getting much from Gilmore offensively. And in a lot of ways, he hurts the offense because the spacing gets clogged up when he's in there. You have Jacoby Neath, who's been hurt, hasn't been able to play. Hodges hasn't been able to get on the court. Khamari McGee hasn't been able to really play much. Markus Ilver, who we thought was hopefully in line for kind of a bigger role, right? A bigger forward who can shoot a little bit. He hasn't really been able to find many minutes. Isaac Lindsay has been inconsistent in his minutes and his ability to create shots. So again, it's really kind of a 6-man rotation, and that's really dangerous when you get down into the season. As you wear down a little bit, you get injuries, foul trouble. This team is still kind of light on the depth. Number 2, Crowl is who he is, and we need to embrace it. So I get a lot of people who, in the YouTube chats, in Twitter DMs, on the Discord, even on our live shows, that get frustrated because Stephen Crowl isn't making, he's not a fluid post player. He's just not. And at times it almost looks a little clumsy in the post, right? You can't throw it in there and always get just a really clean, great post look. Teams don't always really have to double them, especially if he has size down there. I get all that, but let's embrace him because there's a lot here that's really good too. He leads the team in assists. Stephen Crowl leads the team in assists at, I believe it's 4 or 3 point. I don't have the number up here, but he leads the team in assists. He's second in rebounds. He provides size defensively, moves his feet well enough. And even though he's not shooting the 3 well, he still provides a bit of a pick and pop threat. All I'm saying is maybe next year, Stephen Crowl develops into more of that post threat, that traditional post threat that a lot of Badger fans like. But let's embrace what he's doing right now. Let's not lose sight of the fact that he is a tremendous passing big man, right? Teams can't really double him. So when you do get a mismatch, if you double him, he's going to find open players. He's going to find cutters. Like occasionally he's a little too aggressive trying to find cutters. He tried to feed, I think it was Khamari McGee the other day against Iowa. That pass just wasn't there, but he's a very good passer, good positional defender, good positional rebounder. Let's embrace him for who he is instead of kind of constantly getting frustrated that he's not that post force that we want him to be, because he's not that dude this year, but he does a lot of other winning things. So let's embrace Crowl for what he is. Number 3, you have 3 easy games. I shouldn't say easy games, but you have 3 non-conference games starting with Lehigh coming up. I would love to see Khamari McGee get 5 to 10 minutes in each of these games and just to see, right? Because here's the thing with McGee. McGee physically, now I'm not in practice. So I'm not saying what Gard isn't playing him for no reason, right? Gard's seen him in practice every day. All I'm saying is some guys are gamers. Some guys you have to let them play through mistakes a little bit. Khamari McGee physically gives the Badgers something that they don't have outside of him, right? A quick, low center of gravity guy who can get by people, can get in the paint, but I think he needs his confidence. I think he needs to be, given a little bit of a run where he can make some mistakes and play through it and get 5 to 10 minutes a game, because I think he can really help the team from a physical quickness, athletic standpoint. But he's not going to get those minutes in tough games against Iowa if he doesn't get that groove going. I would love to see Khamari McGee get 5 to 10 minutes a game, see if he can run the offense a little bit, See if he can hit some shots. See if he can be a bit of that terror defensively. And if not. But these next 3 games to me are a great opportunity in a Petrie Cup to kind of let him to see what happens without having to play Iowa, Illinois, Purdue, Michigan, that kind of stuff. So give him a little bit of run. I'm curious to see what happens. Number 4, free throw shooting is an issue. Not a surprise, but listen, Hepburn's shooting 70%, Wall's shooting 70%, Crow's at 63%, Davis is at 66%, Gilmore is 2 of 8. So this is going to sink in. There's going to be a close game, and hopefully it isn't a critical one, either in a tournament, for example. But there's going to be a close game where free throw shooting might sink this team, and it just is what it is. Now, the counterweight to that is Connor Esigian is 17 of 17. He's automatic at the line, right? So maybe you have, and listen, Gard, they did it, against Iowa. They got the ball into Connor, and instead of getting fouled, he got stripped, and Iowa went in got the game tying 3-pointer. But I think you got to continue to get it to Connor in those moments, right? Yes, he turned it over, but if you miss the front end of a free throw, it's basically a turnover anyway, right? Chucky Hepburn missed the front end of a free throw. So you may just need to live through some of the Connor turnovers and make sure he's touching the ball in those clutch moments, work with him, but he's the guy you need at the line. He's 17 to 17 for a team that, quite frankly, outside of him has struggled shooting from the free throw line. So yeah, it's going to be interesting in tight games. You might need to find the ball to Connor, or find a way to get the ball to Connor. And number 5, my last one, this one is a credit to Greg Gard. I want to give kudos to Greg Gard. Per 40 minutes, Connor Esigian is leading the team with 8.1 3-point attempts. So essentially, if everyone played the same amount of time, Connor is shooting more threes per minute than any other Badger. I think that's a really good thing. I'm excited to see him continue to get more minutes. Now, part of the reason he's not leading the team in 3-point attempts overall is because he doesn't play enough minutes. He's at about 22 minutes right now, which I know it seems high for a freshman, but when he's that big of a threat and he's that good of a shooter, I think you got to bump that up even more, right? I think 25, 26, 27 minutes, he's got to be playing borderline starter minutes. And if that eats into Jordan Davis's minutes a little bit, Max Klesmit's minutes a little bit, it is what it is. He's such a threat offensively that he almost needs to be out there more. But I do like the fact that when he's out there, he's finding shots. Gard is getting him looks. He leads the team per 40 in 3-point attempts. So I love that. Now, the other thing, the quibble I would have is Max Klesmit needs to shoot more. We need to get him more looks, right? He's shooting about half per 40 that what Jordan Davis is shooting. And and again, not trying to knock Jordan Davis, but Max Klesmit's a better shooter than Jordan Davis. Those numbers should be reversed, right? We need to get Klesmit more shots, more minutes. Greg Gard needs to. I shouldn't say I have nothing to do with that. But Greg Gard, I think, in that coaching staff needs to find more shots for Klesmit. And quite frankly, Klesmit needs to be a little more aggressive. There are some looks. He had an open look on the wing against Iowa. He passed it up to dribble it into a contested 2-pointer. He needs to be more aggressive to hunt those shots as well. So that's where I'm at. Those are my 5 big thoughts on basketball. I don't think the team is very deep, much like last year. I think that the idea that we had more depth was kind of overblown. I like that Gard is getting Connor looks when he's out there. He needs to play more, in my opinion. We need to find more offense for Max Klesmit. Embrace who Stephen Crowl is. He is who he is, and that's a lot of good stuff. And free throw shooting is going to be an issue, and I would get Khamari McGee more minutes, especially over this next stretch of 3 games that are out of conference and very winnable. With that, I appreciate everybody tuning in to Locked On Badgers. Thank you for making this your first listen every day, your team every day. Really do appreciate y'all so much. So on Wisconsin, we're going to keep talking to you over the next couple of days, every day. You know that. A lot of good content coming up, so stay tuned for that. And on Wisconsin, let's go.